I'm Rishi, CEO and co-founder at Roost. Today I'm going to talk about the first of the three mistakes which got me fired. To be honest, two of them got me fired, one of them got me almost fired. So Roost as a platform has the few key features which came from my deep experience in the industry, which is over 2 decades. The interesting part about my experience is that I have been involved with development and developers in one capacity or another. For more than a decade, I was a developer, and then, even in the capacity of an entrepreneur, my primary focus was building the developer community, training the developers, bringing more and more developers up to speed. So that way, and I am not a developer who walks on water. In my case, most of the learnings have come from deep experience, and for almost a decade, that experience I have shared with the developer community, and now we are putting that as in concrete form with Roost as a platform. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, my first mistake was collaborating with other developers. In fact, it was the high crime of those days. So, we are talking about circa 2001. It was the dot-com boom. The stock market started crashing March of 2000, but the startup boom continued for almost a year after that. So this event happened a few months before the startup I was working on went down. So in that era, there were four horsemen: Cisco, Microsoft, Dell, and Intel. So these companies were called horsemen because they were pretty much driving the tech stock boom. Obviously, there was a lot of startups which also did quite well, but these were the iconic companies which led the tech revolution. And looking back now, 20 years down the line, these companies are still very big companies. So they were relevant at that time, they are relevant now. Microsoft obviously is a very interesting story because they have reinvented themselves to be a very significant player, exactly the way they were in 90s. So anyways, so there were these four horsemen, but then there were some companies which so as much as the four horsemen were identified with the dot-com boom, there are few companies which are identified with the dot-com bust, and Webvan and Pets.com are among them. At that time, I was working for a unified mobility startup. The name of the company was Santica. Unified mobility was an interesting concept because this concept came before the smartphones. And so it was a great idea, but it was before its time. The folks with good memories, whenever there's a talk of unified mobility, they would think of Everypath. Everypath was a leader in the space at that time. And we were a bunch of young developers working at that time, a clique of four developers, still great friends. Everybody is doing really well in their careers. By the way, this picture is not a new picture. It's a picture is a few years old when one of them came to my home for dinner. So we had very good time. We would mingle well, we would bond well. Our families are still very close to each other, and we would also code really well together, or that's what we thought. So we had a great manager. We really liked our manager. He was very encouraging. He got fired for some unrelated reason, and we got a new manager. And this new manager gave me an assignment. I finished the assignment the way I always finish my assignments, and I was very happy. I went to the manager, and to my surprise, rather than giving me kudos, the manager started lashing at me, and I still remember his words. And they were something in the lines of that, Rishi, I saw a bunch of developers, and when he said bunch of developers, he obviously meant the three folks which you have seen in the back. So hanging around your desk, and essentially he was accusing me of not being capable of writing code myself and taking help from others, right? And to me, the collaboration among developers came very naturally, right? So my thinking at that time was that when you collaborate, the output is more than some of the individual people's output, right? And I still have the same thinking today. It's just that people with the old school mindset, like my manager at that time, their voice was prevalent, right? And there were few reasons for it, all of them wrong, right? So, for example, if developers collaborate, they would think they were still thinking in some of the managers, not the new age ones. They were still thinking in terms of the factory mindset, assembly line mindset, right? That one developer would provide the same output as 2 or 3 developers working on it, right? Obviously, the whole statement is incorrect here in a way. It's without nuance, because when we're talking about developer collaboration, it's only for a certain phase which needs collaboration, right? Not for the part which doesn't need collaboration. But anyway, my manager did not believe in the nuance. No pun was intended, as much as nuance got acquired for $19 billion, if I remember correctly, yesterday. But my punishment was not over, so I thought, that okay, I felt bad about it, that maybe I've done something wrong here, so, and I was like, okay, whatever, so maybe I would be more careful. But my manager was still not done, because remember, it was not even a misdemeanor, it was a felony, right? Taking help from other developers was a felony in his mind. So after a few months, the company ran out of money, and I was one of the first ones to let go. There, I looked for a job for 1.5 months. I could not find anything. I went back to India. I was in India for 1.5 years. In fact, that's where I worked along with Sudhir. Sudhir and I, obviously, we have been classmates, and we have known each other since 1994. But there, for the first time, we worked at a job. And now, obviously, Sudhir is co-founder of the second company which we have founded. So anyway, so that was as tough as those days were, as a lot of friends remember, I think my experience for working for a messaging-based startup was quite profound, and that helped me a lot in my career. And slowly, what happened was that in a few years, the agile programming and extreme programming, the agile methodology and the extreme programming, they kind of became the cool things, right? So the things which were frowned upon, they became the cool thing. There was a concept of pair programming. In fact, as a lot of you may remember, that in the initial days, the pair programming still made managers very uncomfortable, because they were still thinking in terms of linear output of the developers. So anyway, so long story short, we can argue that what happened with me 20 years back was an accident or a happy accident. At that time, it did not look like a happy accident, but now my manager is, I would say, he gets the most credit for the developer collaboration feature which we have in Roost. With that, thank you so much for your time, and we'll discuss the next mistake in the coming episode. Till then, please go to roost.io and check out the product and let us know the feedback. And please do subscribe to the Roost channel on YouTube if you have not already done so. Thank you so much.